everybody's going to be concerned about this question. Nobody ever asks, are the people more vitality, have more vitality? Are they happier? Have they, has other things decreased like diseases and stuff? They always want to know, did they lose weight? So it isn't you, it's me. That's kind of what I wanted to, well, it could be you also. This is kind of the point of the video today. I just did an interview with Rennie, and she said something to me that really made a lot of sense. This is Ryan over High Carb Generator. Welcome to my channel. So if you have been following me for a while, you probably noticed in the comments section that I've been kind of harsh or irritated with people in the comments section. I probably shouldn't do that. I'm going to say that I'm a Leo. I'm kind of like a cat. When I feel like I'm backed into a corner, I attack. And I probably shouldn't be doing that. But it comes from a place of just like I know I know what I'm talking about. I've trained a lot of people. And when I interviewed Rennie, she's like, you need to open up more, and you tell more of your story. And my only response to that was that I'm like, I wish I would have started this channel way back in the day, because I would have had this whole journey documented. But I wouldn't have had this part of the journey documented that I'm about to talk about, because this part of the journey isn't really part of my vegan journey. It's part of my life before that. And YouTube didn't even exist. These cell phones didn't even exist. None of this existed back then. So it wouldn't have been documented anyways, but I was doing, and I will get to the point of the story, but I was doing some shredding of paperwork the other day. And when I train people, I trained a lot of people. I probably trained 200, 300, 400 people. But it wasn't, diet related. It was diet related, kind of. So I'm going to get into, they were playing football, they were playing basketball, mostly football, a lot of wrestling. And I'm going to tell you, I have to get this story out there. And I just know this calories in, calories out thing is just so wrong. And so when I see this kind of thing in the comments section, I'm like, I don't want people thinking this. I don't want people going through this. I don't want people even having this on their mind. Now, I'm going to put a little caveat in this. If you're going to live on that Taco Bell diet, if you're going to live on that Twinkie or McDonald's or Arby's or whatever diet it is, whatever crazy diet where people are talking about you should just eat less and I eat McDonald's or whatever. I saw one guy, talking about he only ate a quarter of a quarter pounder 4 times a day. So he basically finished off and he's like, oh, I lost weight like crazy. And I'm like, why did they put this shit out there? Like, why do they do it? It just isn't effective in the long term. How many people can do that? Not many. And I guarantee if they really followed this person, they would have completely screwed up at some point and gone completely the other end and might have gained a lot of weight and everything like that. So I'm going to take you back. And another thing, I can't help but think, not a lot of people watched or commented on that Rennie interview, and that really irritates me because I don't want to interview people, have them put their journey out there, and people aren't watching my channel because of the comment section. I don't want to turn off the comments, but I'm probably gonna have to turn myself off, like zip it and just not comment, maybe get rid of these comments. And here's the reason why. So we're going to go back to the late 90s into 2005. I did a lot of training. My life was at the gym. And so I decided I might as well make a living from this. I didn't like the job. Well, I liked the job that I had, but I was working so many hours. It was ridiculous. I was working like during Christmas and New Year's. Each week I would put in like 102 hours. Like I still actually saved those paychecks because I'm like, I can't, who works this many hours? Especially, I was in my teens at that time. I was going to high school full time. I'm like, this is just ridiculous. So I started training people and I really liked it. I really did. But one of the things with me was, especially in my 20s and stuff, I used to tell people, I'm like, I'll train you. I'll get you as strong as you can get on your genetic code, right? I can't do steroid-like effects on you. I can get you as strong as you possibly can get with what you've been given. And that's what I did. And I helped a lot of people. There was usually three different systems that I would use based on muscle tissue that I could tell that people had. I would put them through like a little test, or I would ask them, you know, are you really sore after you do this? But this isn't the point of the video. But eventually people really started wanting me to give them some advice on what they should be eating. I really didn't want to do it, but people were really talking, you know, or really wanted me to do it. So at the time, I was really looking into this keto, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to test this out on people. But I would really wait until the people had been working with me for a while, so I had a baseline. I kind of knew where their strength was, what their weaknesses were, or, you know, where they started when they were going. So I kept training these people, and I'm on a train track here. I was training these people. Look at this train track. Should we walk it? I was training these people. I'm gonna get off this. And I knew that they were getting stronger because I can get people stronger. But I would put them on this keto, or I put them on, or they would read in a magazine about how you had to starve yourself, or, you know, these cutting things that people, you know, these bodybuilders used to do, you know, the cutting phases and bulking phases, which is all total bullshit. You don't need to do that. But when people would go on the cutting phase, which meant that they were cutting back on their carbohydrates, and sometimes even cutting back on their water intake, and cutting back on their salt intake, and upping their protein, and sometimes upping the fat, but sometimes not upping the fat, I would start noticing that their strength was going down, 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 and down, and they were getting mad at me. And I'm like, look, I didn't want to do this in the first place. I didn't want to be a dietitian, even though I had dietitian credits from my training certificate. I actually was allowed to, you know, put people on diets because I had actually done the training for this. And I went through this for a couple of years, and I would really just give up on it because I noticed that people were getting fatter, people were getting weaker, and people were just absolutely miserable. They were mad at me. They were living on, at this time, ephedra was legal, so they could take ephedra. So they were living on ephedra, the ECA stack. So basically ephedra, man, it's light. Ephedra, caffeine, and aspirin is what they were making, you know, getting their energy from, because what they were eating wasn't giving them any energy. So this went on for a couple of years, and I really didn't want any part of it. And I kept telling people, you know, because I had training buddies, you know, like a couple of my buddies were trainers, and they had the same thing. My one buddy, James, I'm not gonna say his last name, he's actually a pretty famous trainer. He himself normally was a fat guy. Like, he was very strong. And he had a gut usually, because every time he cut, he did do competitions, but every time he would go cut, he would lose all his strength. He would lose all of his energy. So basically when he was cutting, he barely could train. He could barely train. He would do maybe an hour on the step thing, you know, the stepper, and that was it. You know, he would do real light weights. And if you read bodybuilding magazines, you see this is pretty common. This is very, very common thing to do. And I'm like, it just doesn't make any sense, because I had other buddies. Some of my buddies who competed, they lived on Friday, and I like spent a lot of time with these guys. So it's not like I wasn't at their house. It's not like I didn't know what they were doing. But a lot of my buddies who were training and who were pretty ripped, like year round, their diets were terrible. I'm talking like eating peanut butter M&Ms, which were just coming out at the time. Everybody was going crazy over those things, washing that down with fried chicken and having an entire pizza for dinner. And then for dessert, having like half a dozen, if not a dozen donuts. Because when you lift heavy, you get hungry, boy. You get really hungry. And I'm like, why the hell are these people over here on the fried food diet with M&Ms, and these people over here, I'm having them eat quote unquote healthy, and they're getting fatter. They can't lift as much. They have no energy. And I'm like, why the hell is this happening? This like does not make any sense to me. So 2002 or 2003 comes around. I can't remember which it was, but I do remember this is the last time I ever wrote a check. My buddy, Nat, comes over to the house and he's like, dude, I've been hearing about this guy, Mike Menzer. I'm like, okay. He's like, he just put out a book not too long ago and he just died. I'm like, well, that sounds like a good combination. And he's like, well, we got to check this book out. And at that time, Borders was still around. Borders is the best bookstore the United States of America has ever had. I don't know why the hell Barnes & Noble won that battle. Everybody I know liked Borders better, but that's just a side rant. So we go out to Borders, and sure enough, they had like 2 or 3 copies. And I didn't have any cash on me. And at this time, I really didn't like using debit card or credit card or anything like that. So I wrote a check for it. I don't know why I had to tell you that part. It's the last time I wrote a check. So we start reading this guy, and I'm like, this guy is talking about some weird shit here. You know, like he's talking about you only train people like every 4 to 7 days. So actually, I'm wrong. So at this time, I only trained people 2 different ways. This was my third, and actually, this was my most popular. And this is why I had a lot of people training, because I listed HIIT training on my business card, and I had affiliations with some GNCs and stuff in the area, and everybody's like, why'd you stop training? I'm a fucking idiot, all right? Every time I'm really good at something, I malfunction. I have this weird thing, like I'm a super, super smart person, like ridiculous. Like I tested out of chemistry. I tested out of all these kind of things in high school so I could do classes I actually wanted to do. I've got street smarts because I grew up in a crazy area. But that middle ground of where you actually function and where you actually communicate with people, I just suck at it, right? So that's why. It just, I don't want to talk about that in this one, but this is part of my misery. So anyway, I started reading this book, and at the end of the book, he was talking about training and talking about how stupid people are for just doing this standard 3x10 sets and everything like that, which made sense to me because I never trained people like that. I always thought that was stupid too. And then we get to the back of the section where it says if you have more than like an inch on above your waist in the back, where people call it love handles, then just do 6 to 8 miles on the bike trainer a day and you'll be fine. Then he started talking about diet. It was a very simple diet. It was, I can't remember 100% what it was. It was either 75% carbohydrates or 65% carbohydrates. The other macros, protein was higher than fat, but it made up 100% obviously. So it was like 65, I can't remember. Or maybe there was different variations of it, but it was very high carbohydrate comparatively to anything I had ever read. And this is at the time when I was going to the doctor. Stupid me didn't listen to him. I was still on keto. But I'm like, I'm gonna try this on these people that I'm training. I'm gonna try this. And I've never talked about this before, and I don't know why. So I did. Maybe it's because I just went through these notes the other day, and maybe that's why. I have no idea. So I started using this, whatever it was, 65% carbohydrates or whatever, and everybody was so happy. They're like, man, I'm just always so hungry, and I see, my significant other or somebody I'm dating or, like whatever, somebody here and there that's eating just nothing but potato, like potato, the standard at that time diet, like potato, like mostly made up of carbohydrates. Like I can remember even going to family events at that time, and people would still, even in the early 2000s, late 90s, even though Atkins was taking over, they would still ask you what you wanted for your starch. There was no raw, I'm sure what raw vegan was around back then, but that was none of that. What starch do you want to have? And I'm like, this, and then I start like reliving, like growing up with a bunch of Irish and some Slovaks, and all of them like potatoes, all of them, and they were all skinny. The people who were in my life that were fat were doing like I was, always with these restrictions, always with these CECO, always with the, and you can hear the inflection of my voice because it's bullshit. If you're doing this keto stuff, or in the keto, calories in, calories out, you're fucking as stupid as I was when I did it. It just is what it is. So I start reliving this like when I was growing up, and these people, they didn't count their fat calories, they didn't count their protein calories. They just made their dinner around potatoes, basically. It was kind of funny. Years ago, my cousin, they're still married. My cousin married this Italian girl. And she had a huge family. I got a huge family, and we would go over their house because they had this huge house with they had like this farm field behind them, and they would do pig roast. So that's not great, and I never even liked it back then. But they would do these pig roasts. But there was a lot of carbohydrates there, right? And the Italian side would go for the pasta, and my side would go for the potatoes. It's just kind of funny, but. There was a lot of slender people in that family. And her family, my family, the ones who weren't restricting were not fat. The ones who were restricting were fat. And I'm like, what the hell? I start thinking this. So I start training people based around this higher carbohydrate load. But I didn't do it myself at first. And I'm like, damn, these people their numbers started going up like crazy. They started being able to. Now, I always trained around the compound movements because I think this training by body part is just stupid. You can't remove your biceps. You can't just train your biceps. Sorry, it's just not possible. So I would train people in the compound movements, and I started noticing numbers that they didn't even have prior to this. I started telling them, like, look, if you're Italian, eat your pasta. If you're, or whatever you like. If you're Irish or whatever from Europe, chances are potatoes. If you're Asian, which I didn't have a whole lot of, but I did have a couple, eat rice or noodles or whatever. And all of a sudden, this is when I took off. This is when my business took off. I started it was good in the beginning when I first started. It took off. When I started training people like this, it was crazy. I started just using Mike Menzer's ratios. And these people, the strength that I was seeing. It's crazy because I would keep their records for them. And if you're training and if you made it this far and you actually go to the gym, get a notebook. Don't use your damn phone. Don't even bring your phone into the gym. Don't be distracted. It's pointless. Get a notebook, keep track of this, and I would know in their next workout how much weight they could lift. And they were like, man, you're like the weight whisperer here. But their numbers were going up like crazy, and they wouldn't go back. They wouldn't go back to the keto, and I guarantee if I talked to a lot of them, was stupid me, like, well, keto, this worked for them. I'm just going to get fat. But so I'm also, for the next, I don't know, however many years, I went back and forth between eating this way and keto. And it's just eating disorder at the highest level. All right, so I'm editing this video and I'm looking and I'm like, you know what? I didn't answer this question because everybody's going to be concerned about this question. Nobody ever asks, are the people more vitality, have more vitality? Are they happier? Have they, has other things decreased like diseases and stuff? They always want to know, did they lose weight? And they did. Like I said, the numbers, the weight lifting numbers were going up. The fat was decreasing. Now, when you have that happen, though, you likely are going to have the scale not actually change that much. If you are lifting, or if there's a cellar sizer right here, you're doing the cellar sizer or some kind of resistance training, a lot of the times the number on the scale is going to stay the same. Sometimes go up because muscle, people are like, well, muscle weighs more than fat does. That's just not true. It's not possible. A pound of muscle and a pound of fat are the same thing, but it's 3 times denser, 3 times bigger than fat. So there is that compensation for it. So I did actually have, I think it's actually still over there. Yeah, I can see it from here. I had one of those hand things where I could test people's body fat, and certainly enough, it was going down. that I have. But when I train these people, they didn't have that, luckily. Lucky for them. And you know, I probably train 60-70% women and the rest men, because there's only 2 different variations. And the women always listen. You know, women are so much easier to train than men, because men get that hot, you know, that, well, I don't need this, blah, blah, blah. You know, we all do. It's stupid, right? But women listen. So I knew when I told them to do this, that they would actually listen, and their numbers were going up like crazy. And this is how I got so popular. And this is why, you know, I could make a living off of this. You know, I did do some other jobs because I needed insurance. It is what it is. So I would take, you know, these bare bone, terrible jobs, you know, work at usually part-time, whatever I had to do to get insurance. But on the other, you know, on the side, I would, afterwards, I would train people. And I think the reason I stopped training is I got tired of this. I took a job at New York Life. Well, I took an insurance job at Bankers Life, and then Western Southern, and then New York Life. And when I got to New York Life, I was working so many hours, and I just couldn't train people anymore. And I was making good money selling insurance, like good money. I still remember the one week that I made $25,000 in just 1 week. So I stopped training, and I think that's why it happened. But I would still be willing to train people. But when I look back at those records, when I look back at my records, and I'm not going to show people because I'm not one of these that likes to use others for a gain. But when I look back at those records, it's insane. And this is why when I see this bullshit in the comment sections of people who don't have any kind of pictures up, who usually don't even have pictures on their little profile thing, I'm like, and I did lose a lot of people during this last couple of weeks, and a lot of the ones that I lost, I'm really glad that I did, because they were just, I don't need that message on here. I know, and somebody told me to do my research. I've trained people. I've trained myself. I've done the work. I lost 150 pounds. I still have some weight to lose, maybe. I still carry around a lot of muscle. I don't even know if you got to go to the gym to get muscle. That cellular sizer, I tell you what, that thing. So I've basically had that thing for 10 years, and I've lost little to no muscle. So that's my story. This is why I get so irritated, and I always say that I don't have emotion, but I have emotion with this because I know that you're wrong with the sequel. I know you are. I trained the people. I saw what happened to them. Their numbers went down. They were always lethargic. They were always just grumpy, just looking for how to have energy. And then once I read that Mike Menzer thing, that was it. That was game, set, and match, man. I was like playing 4D chess, you know. I still am with some subjects. So when people see my irritated responses, I probably shouldn't even do it. I probably should just delete it, because I don't want that message out there. I know that. I'm like I said, I'm a Leo, like a cornered cat. I attack. I don't mean to. Look at these berries. Man. I mean, just the perfection of nature is just unreal. I think I'm actually gonna, speaking of perfection, I think I'm gonna go pick apples again. But if you're watching this, you made it this far, you saw them berries, right? Those berries are carbohydrates. They're not keto. Animals and everything know what to eat. We should too. If your body runs 90% off carbohydrates, why the hell are you doing keto? Your body's gonna have to turn all of what you're eating on keto into carbohydrates. And it's very toxic. And then it causes a lot of issues with the body. And it strips all of your energy. And I know this. I'm just irritated with Mr. Ryan for, you know, so much of my journey I don't talk about, and Rennie was right. I really need to start talking about it. That's why she wants to interview me. I'm like thick-headed with things. Hopefully this video did you some good. I'm about to enter a bridge here. Why don't you see the bridge? It's kind of cool. Probably already saw it. Already got B-roll from it. Just take the examples that I'm trying to give you. Try them out. If you've been on keto for forever, it's not good. It doesn't end well for anybody other than the doctors. And actually it didn't even end well for the doctor that told me not to do keto, because he started doing keto and he died. Probably should get worked up like this in more of my videos. Get the point across that this calories in, calories out is never going to do you any good. But the thing is like everything else, it's not great. It's instant gratification. You're instantly going to get that gratification from it because you are poisoning yourself, but people don't realize that. And then all of a sudden they lose weight so quick and they're like, oh, it's working so good. But it's not, because eventually it fails. And then you're going to blame yourself and you're going to stop eating, you know, or you're going to start eating less and less and less. To what point? You know? Where are you going with that? That's just going to end in an absolute catastrophic failure, and you're going to be on the yo-yo the rest of your life. Look at this. You see this? I don't think it's going to capture that. But there's a fishing line with a bobber and the electric wire. The point of the story is, just don't listen to it. Try it out. Even if you are only doing, you know, like I'm like an 80-10-10 person. But even if you only go to the 65% carbohydrates, your life will change so drastically, and you will just eat how you're supposed to. Don't calculate calories. Go based on how hungry you are or how full you are. So, you know, reading in a magazine about how many calories you should eat, what do they know? They don't know. I mean, billionaire Oprah Winfrey paid to have somebody live in their house, I think it was a team, live in their house and calculate how many calories she needed a day. How was her result? She's still fat. Didn't work for a billionaire. You really think it's going to work for you? Why do you think 95% of the people who do this stuff fail? They're just like, well, they got terrible will, and you know, they can't handle themselves. Okay, right. The hunger drive one is going to win every single time. You can't avoid it. It's like the law of gravity, which I think is magnetism, and I don't think it's gravity at all. But it's that law. You can't, you're not just going to start floating, right? It's keeping you here. You're here. You're not going anywhere. It's like my beard, man. I keep forgetting to shave. Oh, I failed myself again. If you're going to keep, and people just keep, you know, down that cycle, and they're like, well, it was going to work one of these times. Just like me, stupid. You know, like I kept doing keto thinking it's going to eventually work one time, but it didn't. It never did. It would give me those guaranteed results right in the beginning, and then it would fail. Anyway, here's the end of my journey. Oh, here's more of these berries. These things are everywhere. They'll probably be here until like the spring. I don't know what they're called. And it's a lot of kids. Oof. Scary times. They're probably watching crazy me. Anyway, if you liked the video, give it a like. You know, share this video. I mean, people really need to see this stuff. I don't even care. You know, I'm not one of these animal rights person. I'm not here to harm animal. I'm not here to save them either. You know, somebody told me a long time ago that these animals are doing karma, like maybe like Hitler's a pig and he has to come back, you know, come back as a pig and get slaughtered or something like that. Maybe that's true. I don't know. But if you can get somebody doing at least 65-75% carbohydrates, they're closer to vegan anyway. Anyway, like, subscribe, comment down below. Promise I won't attack it, hopefully. And I'll talk to you in the next one.